Hello, good evening. I'm Jesse Zwick, Southern California Director of the Housing Action Coalition. I'm joined by my colleague Victoria Gomez, and we are in partnership with YIMBY Los Angeles. And together, we are excited to welcome you to our LA Council District 13 Candidate Forum focused on all things housing. The Housing Action Coalition, for those that don't know us, is a nonprofit advocacy group that brings together over 175 member organizations across California's multifamily housing ecosystem. We have affordable and market rate developers, architects, contractors, labor unions, land use attorneys, community organizations, all united in the conviction that we need to build a lot more homes at every income level in order to solve our state's affordability and displacement crisis. YIMBY Los Angeles, which is a chapter of the nationwide network YIMBY Action, shares that mission and has been a leading grassroots voice for housing abundance. Council District 13 includes the heart of Hollywood, as well as the neighborhoods like Larchmont, Silver Lake, Echo Park, Atwater Village, Rampart, historic Filipino Town, Westlake, and many more. It's also one of LA's most renter-heavy districts, where around 80% of households rent. As a result, residents here feel LA's housing crisis acutely through rising rents, overcrowding, and high rates of unsheltered homelessness. And the over 150 people who signed up for tonight's forum bear testimony to that fact.
Mhm.
Uh, Tonight, have invited leading candidates for this seat to answer questions about where they stand on housing issues that matter most to people in CD 13 and to the city as a whole. Briefly, here's how it'll work. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement, followed by roughly 12 questions, with 1 minute per candidate per question. We'll close with 2 minute closing statements, and we'll rotate who answers first, so no one always goes first or last. We ask the candidates to keep to their time. We'll interject if needed, and to focus on policy, not personal attacks. If your name is invoked by another candidate, you will get an extra 30 seconds to respond at the end of that round. Uh, with that all said, let us jump in for opening statements. Dylan, you will be first, followed by Hugo, and then Rich.
Thank you, Housing Action Coalition, for organizing this. Thank you to the other candidates for making yourself available. Thank you to the 100 or so or who may be in the room. My name is Dylan Kendall. I am challenging the incumbent, Hugo Soto-Martinez, for the seat in Council District 13. I am a 30-year community member of this district, and I have always been a renter. So I have moved through several different apartments, several different types of housing here in the district. And I'm running because we know we have a council member who has neglected to focus on the core requirements that will improve our quality of life here in this district. And housing is one of the three platform areas for me. I'm also a mom, and my own son had to move out of the city because we simply could not find an affordable place for him to live in the district. So I am here tonight to introduce to you my ideas about 15-minute models. So we don't look at housing simply as warehousing people, but about building livable communities in which we match job growth with community programming, with green space, and with housing. I'm sorry, I just looked, that's 1 minute left, correct? Sorry, that just caught my eye. I'm also a small business owner. I've launched 2 companies here in this district. I built the only school for homeless young adults, disrupting chronic homelessness at the age of 18 before we lost foster care youth aging out of the system or kids exiting juvenile justice to chronic homelessness. And then I built my second company here, which was a private sector initiative that I scaled from the dining room table to international sales. I bring that thinking, that commitment. My kids went to school in the district as well. I bring all of these different hats I've worn to this opportunity to revitalize Council District 13 in a way where we remember it's the cultural and creative heart of our city. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Next is Hugo.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much, Housing Action Coalition and YIMBY for putting this forum together. Thank you, Jesse, for moderating, Victoria for helping out, and to my fellow candidates for being here. And thanks to everyone for watching live or on the recording. My name is Hugo Soto-Martinez, and I'm the only renter on LA City Council. I grew up in South Central Los Angeles and experienced the effects of racist redlining firsthand. It shaped the schools where I went, the opportunities that I had, and what people like me were even thought possible in the city. So for me, this work is deeply personal. Now, as a council member, I try to approach every single issue through the eyes of working people. People like my parents who came here and documented, who worked incredibly hard to provide for our families, for my family as street vendors, and because they were eventually able to buy a home and become citizens in this country. That's what guides my work every single day when I wake up every single day. It's why we fought to lower allowable rent increases the first time in 40 years here in the city of Los Angeles. Why we passed just cause eviction protections, and why I'm fighting to build more housing of all kinds in all parts of the city. Because we need both protection and production if we're going to solve this crisis. And I'm proud to have the support of organizations that are deeply engaged in this work every single day. Groups like Abundant Housing Los Angeles, ACE Action, the workers building our housing, including the building trades, the carpenters union, along with leaders in this space like Supervisor Lindsay Horvath and Congresswoman Laura Friedman. They've all supported my campaign. I'm here tonight because I believe we can do more. We can build a city where working people aren't just pushed around, where housing is abundant, and where opportunity is not determined by your zip code. And I hope to earn your support tonight.
Thank you, Rich. Go to the mute there.
Amateur hour. Sorry about that. I'm Rich Sarian, Council District 13 candidate. I was born and raised in Los Angeles. I'm a Valley boy. I have been a renter since I moved out of my parents' apartment, which was around 2011. I am gay. I'm an Armenian Angelino. My great-grandfather fled Armenia during the genocide and started life here in America. And I was a part of the family's trash company. So I grew up doing that. I have been in the business improvement district career path for about a decade. I'm the vice president of strategic initiatives for the South Park Business Improvement District downtown. So I've worked very closely with developers putting up housing in parking lots in South Park, which is ground zero for development before COVID hit. But I have seen the ins and outs of how our city works, and one would argue doesn't work, and what can be done to make that happen. Council District 13 is the best part of Los Angeles. When people think of Los Angeles, they think of the Echo Park. They think of the Walk of Fame. They think of all the great things that Council District has to offer. I am watching our city in a standstill with construction. We are losing Angelinos at the regular, be it eviction or having to move for better job opportunities. And it all is because there is not enough housing that is reasonably priced. SB 79 comes in, and it's a great thing that we can use to really excite and invigorate those to get back building in Los Angeles. And I am excited by the future of our city. It is such a wonderful district, and I'm looking forward to bringing construction back so that we can get housing of all types for all Angelinos in the district.
Thank you so much to each of you for your statements and for staying on time. We're going to jump right in to the first question here. CD13 includes some of the most transit-rich, job-rich parts of Los Angeles, exactly the kind of place where we need to be building more housing and where it would have the greatest impact on affordability and transit ridership. But citywide, permits are less than 15,000 homes a year regularly, whereas the need established by the state is that we'd be building closer to 60,000 if we're going to hit our goals. What is the biggest, boldest thing you would do if elected to accelerate housing production in the district and across the city? Starting with Hugo, and then Rich, and then Dylan.
Thank you. I think that's a great question. I talk to housing developers quite a bit. And so I think there's a couple things that would be pretty transformational. Number one, take away the power of council members to have discretion over these planning and land use decisions, which I fully support. And I know groups like Housing Action Coalition and YIMBY have been pushing quite a bit, which is why now most of the projects being built in the city are ministerial and not by right. But I want to have those rules baked in, everything upfront and loaded, so the developers have certainty, predictability, and know that these projects can be delayed without appeals. Second one is the permitting process just needs to be sped up. It's really pathetic where the city is right now with permitting. It's now, I think, the thing that takes the longest to accomplish after entitlements. And third, I think we just got to open up more public money. It's really terrible that developers are using 20% interest rate loans to build housing. We need to find some more cheaper money and more accessible to build faster.
Thank you. I don't know if we can turn that off. Okay, that's like the Academy Awards playoff music. We'll work on that one. Next is where were we? Next is we started with Hugo and then we go to Rich.
Great. Thank you. What we can do, we need to be bolder. We need to be building taller. I would argue that 20 to 30 story towers in parking lots around Sunset and Vine, Cahuenga and Vine, Cahuenga and Sunset. We have the, Sunset Tower, CNN Tower, encourage those. There are so many buildings in Hollywood that were entitled to go up that would help meet our goals for this. Permitting in the city is unacceptable. What happens? We need to make sure that we've got inspectors that are from day one to the end. We have got to encourage that our permitting is done without these holdups that are constantly happening with interdepartmental chaos. So cutting through that, and also DWP reform would be something I'd crack down on immediately.
Thank you. Dylan.
So the question is, what do we do immediately to increase housing productivity? Am I correct?
What would be the boldest thing you would do
Yeah.
to really get us to where we need to be?
Reform ULA. Reform ULA. This is a disaster. The transfer tax had unintended consequences. We know that. Housing has fallen off a cliff. Not only has the transfer tax structurally altered production in the city, it's also now it's producing negative revenue. It is fiscally inefficient because every dollar that we are gaining from the ULA tax that is currently written is costing us $1.38 in negative revenue and property tax that we don't get to reassess because nobody's selling buildings. So first and foremost, we have to reform ULA. I'm not saying repeal, but I'm going to say we have to reform ULA. Take it back to what should have been its intended consequence, and that should have been a mansion tax, not on all property. The other thing I'm going to be close on.
Well, you'll have more time on that and others. Thank you. So, to be honest here, there's a question that I have on the idea of whether we need to be building affordably or at all income levels. But I think you guys all touched, I think, on the idea that housing is needed at all income levels. So we're going to skip straight on to a question about rent control. The city council voted last year to significantly lower the cap on rent increases for rent stabilized apartments from a range of what was 3 to 8% annually to a range of 1 to 4%. Annual rent increases are now limited to 90% of the consumer price index, and 1 to 2% pass-through charge for utilities was eliminated, as well as rent increases for additional dependents are no longer permitted. Uh, Hugo, you've championed these changes, Rich and Kendall. I'm curious to know how you would have voted. Each of you, please explain your reasoning, starting with Rich, and then Dylan, and then Hugo.
Great, thank you. I live in a rent stabilized unit, so I don't think I would have been able to vote, but I do thank the council member for that. I absolutely agree. I think our rent stabilization ordinance is great with that amendment to it. I think that we also need to make sure that we are not just, fixing rent stabilized ordinance in that regard, but also creating the funding to allow for rent stabilization funding so that in an emergency scenario, people are not falling into homelessness if they are not able to pay their rent. I think that's a really big second part to that we can really implement as a city.
Thank you, Dylan.
I'm going to be frank. I think it was a largely performative move, and I think it really harmed our small and medium-sized property owners because it's putting more burden now on those property owners who are now having to pull out of the market and they're leaving their buildings to be acquired by corporate landlords. And that's absolutely something nobody really, really wants. I mean, the way the model works, and I've been a renter again for 30 years, all in rent control, because remember, that's all the older buildings in Los Angeles. It is the vast majority, I think 66,000 units or something. Jesse, you could probably give me the exact number, are rent stabilized. So most of us have been in rent stabilized units. I've never had rent go over 3%. And now we've handcuffed some of our smaller landlords because we've froze electricity for single metered buildings. So we know that electricity and utilities are going up, but we've now passed that on to the landlord, and we've not allowed them to increase for additional dependents or adults who may put a lot more wear and tear on the building.
Thank you. Hugo.
No, thank you, Jesse. I was proud to champion this because, in District 13, we have on average 700 eviction filings for non-payment of rent every single month. These are people being evicted, and a lot of them are seniors. And I think folks know that the largest group that is becoming unhoused are seniors. And I'll tell you why, because this is, I believe, was connected to the RSO. The RSO formula said that you can only raise up to inflation. However, it had a 3% minimum for reasons I don't know. I wasn't there when that policy was created. But in the last 23 of the last 30 years, inflation was 2%, 1%, or zero. That means that when seniors were getting a cost of living increase in their Social Security, 1%, 2%, landlords were charging them 3% no matter what. And so this was the right thing to do. I think the morally imprudent thing to do. And I was happy to do it because it gives renters more stability, especially in a district that is 83% renters. And so I was very happy to champion it.
Thank you all. I'm going to go on to another question here. Dylan, you touched on this, but I'm sure you can say more as well. Measure ULA, marketed, as mentioned, to voters as a mansion tax, is a tax on all high-value real estate transactions that passed as a citizens initiative in 2022. It has raised significant revenue for affordable housing and tenant assistance, but studies from UCLA, RAND, and USC all indicate that it has devastated new multifamily housing production in the city, reducing permitting by roughly 50% compared to other jurisdictions across the county. And it has even prevented the construction of more deed-restricted affordable units that are built through mixed income projects that have been forestalled than the dollars raised have been able to fund. The question is simply, should we keep it as is, repeal it, or reform it? And if reform, what specifically should that look like? Starting with Dylan, then Rich, and then Hugo. No,
So as I
sorry,
said,
I did that. I did that wrong.
oh, okay,
Apologies. Starting with Hugo,
okay.
then Rich, then Dylan.
Thank you so much. Yeah, look, I'm a supporter. I was a supporter of ULA when it first came on. I advocated for it. I talked about it a bunch. As you mentioned, Jesse, it's brought on a lot of money for emergency rental assistance, tenant advocacy. It's led to 4,000 units across 80 projects for new production. So there's a lot of things that are very good about this. Now, the concerns that I'm hearing from many of the property owners and developers in my district is in a very specific part of construction, and that's the build and sell model, right? Because developers are being if they build it and they sell it, they're being taxed on the price of the building and not the equity that was created. And that investments are not coming in and it's stalling the building of new things. Now, I want to sift through the data and understand where exactly it's happening. But in this issue, even though I've been a strong advocate of ULA, I'm going to be very opening to looking at the facts because nobody wants something to occur that is stopping housing production.
Thank you. Rich?
Repeal it. Repeal and replace it. If you have a broken nail, if you bend a nail when you hammer it in a wall, do you like try and fix that nail or do you start with a new one? We're supposed to raise $3 billion for affordable housing. It's only been $1 billion. And that's not even counting the jobs that were lost by potential construction, great union jobs. These are all calamities that are at the hands of ULA that Councilmember Rahman introduced amendments to that the council member shot down. It's now in committee purgatory in City Hall where it will sit like the convention center expansion did for a decade. There's no way that a reform to ULA as it stands in committee in our city will see the light of day. Repeal it. People voted for a mansion tax. Let's do a mansion tax because we need funding for affordable housing, not a tax on all housing across the board.
Thank you. Dylan.
Look, I started, the number one thing we can do to ramp up production is make it easier for developers to build, and ULA is definitely preventative. When we tax something, we hope to have two things come out of it. We either want to change customer behavior or we want to raise revenue. And here we're changing customer behavior because we're preventing building from happening. The voters voted for it. I'm not sure we have the right to simply repeal and say, sorry, you voted wrong. We're not going to hear you. This is a democracy. We can reform. We can take it back to what we think might carve out where we're seeing the higher impact and development of new multifamily rentals at various levels. And again, go back to simply attaching it to, quote, mansions, single family homes that are over 5 million. The other thing we can do is change the cliff. I mean, again, we can ramp up around the threshold for where you see the tax come in at. Again, we've done these cliffs. You can get around a 5 million or a 10 million cliff by $1. And the last thing we can do, what Hugo was discussing, we can carve out this 15-year for the buyers and sellers.
Thank you. Next question is about SB 79, which I think was also mentioned earlier. About, I don't know, 2 to 3 weeks ago, the City Council voted to adopt what was the least ambitious of three options for implementing SB 79, a new state transit-oriented housing law, allowing buildings of only up to 4 stories near just 55 of the city's transit stations, while delaying full implementation into the year 2030. Notably, no housing has actually been built under the existing corridor transition program that this option chose to expand. Do you support SB 79, and was the implementation plan council recently adopted adequate, or should the city have gone further? Starting with Rich, then Dylan, then Hugo.
Right. SB 79 is law, and it is time to get to building. And we have got to take advantage of the parking lots that we have within the transit areas, like Hollywood and Highland, Hollywood and Vine, and really build up. I want to see towers that would alleviate and get us to this mandate of units where they are appropriate. I also think gentle density is a great way to solve this. We can be adding the, courtyard and bungalow style as well as fourplexes here and there. But I think the best way to get this SB 79 mandate handled is to encourage tall developments of housing where, the Vaughn's parking lot at the greatest intersection of Hollywood, Virgil, and Sunset could house 1,800 units. We could really build up and quickly so that we could meet these requirements ASAP.
Thank you. Where are we now? Dylan?
So I don't support SB 79. It's been a thing. What I do support, however, so let me back up a little. I don't support SB 79. I think it's bringing a mallet to a problem that really requires a scalpel. I do, and have spoken many times on a 15-minute model where we upzone our commercial corridors. We do a community plan implementation overzone. So we actually responsibly set guidelines to respond to what Hugo was saying earlier. We know we need more by right ministerial permitting. I believe that we need to exhaust other housing, which we have not done with any real commitment or vision before we take, again, a sledgehammer or a mallet into neighborhoods that are functioning and structurally sound. And I want to go back to say, for me, housing is a piece of the puzzle. We need to look at housing not as warehousing people, but as creating livable neighborhoods, which means we need to incorporate small business economies. We need to incorporate parks. We need to think about the community as a whole.
Thank you. Hugo.
Yeah, I'm happy that SB 79 passed because what's missing in the conversation is that why was SB 79 something that came on? It's because local jurisdictions and cities were just not doing what's right. And if that where the cities aren't doing what's right, then the state's gonna come in and it's gonna mandate it. So that's the bottom line. That's what's happening with SB 79. Now, I don't think council went far enough. For the folks that were following, I introduced the option to go to option C2, would have given us a mix of the really high density and the sort of the gentle density people talk about. That motion failed, right? But I wanted to see, higher density in areas that had more transit rich. Hollywood was exempt from that. And so we can see way more density in Hollywood. But now we're going to have to do the cleanup. It's going to go to CPC. And rest assured that I will be pushing for higher density locations in my district, because if we're not building enough housing, we're never going to solve the affordability crisis of our city, and we're always going to be, being backwards. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Everyone's always anticipating the next question here, but on the topic of 15-minute cities, there is an initiative known as the Livable Communities Initiative, which is a vision born, I believe, originally among neighbors in Larchmont and Hancock Park for charming, walkable commercial corridors with naturally affordable housing built over small retail shops. Specifically, it calls for changes to the building code and parking requirements to ensure these fine-grained mixed-use buildings, to encourage these fine-grained mixed-use buildings over the lot consolidation and building massing that we see as typical in new projects today.
Mhm.
LCI is calling specifically to pilot its vision on Larchmont Boulevard. What is your opinion on LCI's plan? And if you support it, how will you go about making it a reality? Starting with Dylan. No, I'm doing this. Somehow these things are not following the
Oh,
order that I planned.
that's correct, right?
Yeah, but I think we just started that last one, didn't we? Oh no. Starting in any case, yeah, starting with Dylan, then Hugo, then Rich.
So I'm a big fan of the Livable Communities Initiative. I was actually working on it a couple of years ago before I'd ever even considered candidacy. I bring a lot of it to the fact that my mother lives in Paris, and the idea of creating a walkable car light community is always top of my mind. I mean, she left the city because she needed and wanted that as she was aging, and I think we all see the value in it. So what's happening right now with Larchmont is a design competition, because we've got a couple of ED1 buildings north of Larchmont that are putting some pressure onto the neighborhood that the Greater Wilshire Neighborhood Council is stepping up against. And as I have said repeatedly, again, the idea with housing is it has to be a piece of a puzzle in which we create, not to borrow the term from livable community, but to create a livable neighborhood. And that means we want to reduce vehicle miles traveled. We want to create more walkability. We want to add more green space. We want to do human-centered housing that's not overloading and giving you a sense of anxiety. We want to do neighborhood serving retail. And we can do that on models like 15-minute catchments or neighborhoods or livable communities, in that initiative specifically that came out of Larchmont.
Thank you, Hugo.
Yes, I am fully supportive of it, and I got to give credit to Lindsay Sternum and Sam Aretsky. I don't know if they're out here watching, but look, they've done the work of presenting this vision to their neighbors, what it looks like, why it's important. And what's really exciting about that is they're getting pro-housing support in places that have traditionally been very resistant to upzoning. And so I fully support it, which is why I was supportive of the motion that Councilmember Rahman introduced to study it. But like, I think Jesse said it, like we have to do some reforms in order to make that happen, right? Single staircase is a sort of an essential piece of that. We have to get that done. The designs, we have to get those sort of uploaded first. The parking is another thing. But the thing that I'm very excited about this is that because it has so much community support, almost unanimous, that means that we're going to have the coalition to be able to chip away at it one piece at a time, and so until it finally becomes a reality. Because a lot of these things, what you need is a broad coalition to get things done. So I'm excited to work with them on this.
Rich.
Yes, I absolutely adore the work that Lindsay and Sam are doing with LCI. I met with them pretty much immediately when I started my campaign. I think the pattern book is a great playbook for our city, and we need design like that is local guidance and not local control with things that we can implement that. You can copy and paste this model and put it in Atwater. You can put it in Echo Park. You can put it anywhere in the district, and it will be received with resound community approval. It is something worth noting that this, I think, falls under the chip exclusions in R1 that the council member voted against when it was introduced. And I don't know that that's very supportive of projects like this, but I do know that these should be championed by a council member. And I look forward to really getting density built in this gentle type of way throughout District 13.
And Ugo, if you want, since there was some invoking, if you want to speak to that at all, we are going to ask a question later about Chip, but if you'd like to speak now, you can.
Can we add it to the question? My 30 seconds to the question?
Yes.
Okay. I'll wait then.
Oh, to the one on Chip.
Yeah.
Okay. That sounds fine. Okay.
Okay.
So there was a mention just a second ago about some ED1 projects, specifically on Larchmont Boulevard. Two 100% affordable housing projects at 507 and 531 North Larchmont Boulevard were entitled under ED1, Mayor Bass's program to streamline the approval of affordable housing, and have recently broken ground. They will provide much needed below market housing in a high opportunity part of the city, but many nearby residents believe they are out of scale or otherwise harmful to the neighborhood. Do you support or oppose these projects? Why or why not? Starting with Ugo, then Rich, then Dylan.
Yeah, thanks again, Jesse. So, I think what folks will know about my style of governing is that I always bring the community in no matter what is happening. We have tons of conversations. And so in regards to these projects, I support them. I support them for the reasons I stated before, that council members oftentimes use their discretion to stop development. I do not do that. And believe me, there's been times where I've really felt that, but it's just wrong and it's morally wrong and how people misuse their power in city council. And so if developers are following the rules, they did everything they're supposed to, it is not going to be me who decides to tip the scales on this. And so especially when they're 100% privately funded, 100% affordable projects. So yeah, I'm supportive of it. The community knows that. There are times where we agree, there's times where we disagree. This is one where we were very transparent on why we have a disagreement with the community. And so yeah, I'm glad they're being built.
Thank you. Rich?
Yes, thank you. In my work in the South Park Business Improvement District, we had an affordable housing development that went up. I was there for the grand opening. I spoke to how great the project was. And within a month, they had turned it over to the Inside Safe program, and it has become not an affordable housing development. I think that with ED1, we need clarity on exactly what the project is going to be, the life of the project, how it affects zoning in the area. There's a lot that needs to happen to ED1 so that it's not abused the way that I saw it abused, and I'm now dealing with on a regular basis downtown with this one, as well as another one that popped up. I think that there are bad actors with things, and that happens, but I would most certainly like a local guidance and looking back at LCI for this stretch of Larchmont over affordable housing that could be turned into something different.
Okay, thank you, Dylan.
Well, my understanding is that the biggest issue with these buildings, if we put aside the fact that we would prefer to do a different style of development on North Larchmont that mirrors more what we see south of Larchmont, south of Beverly, is that there's no parking on either project. Because I understand that when the second project converted to full ED1 and they gave up their parking, that was actually where the neighborhood began to push back more. We still may have some issues with design, it being a story or two greater than what Larchmont would prefer. And I don't think it's necessarily even an issue of, again, I want to say for affordable housing in Los Angeles, it's shockingly high, right? Because we are the county, and so our area median income is quite high. You could have a job at Trader Joe's. We want you to be able to afford to live in Larchmont. Nobody's going to argue about that if you work at the Trader Joe's at Hollywood and Vine. But the issue is without the parking, it's putting a lot of pressures on the ancillary streets that are adjacent to Larchmont. And this idea that we don't need to have cars, I would love in a perfect world, but that woman coming home from Trader Joe's at midnight needs to park her car. And I think that's one of the bigger issues with the project. Sorry to continue.
All right, thank you. Next question has to do with affirmatively furthering fair housing. It is a legal requirement under the 1968 Fair Housing Act. It was later codified by the state of California that says that cities must proactively combat discrimination, housing discrimination, overcome segregation, and promote inclusive communities. It requires taking meaningful actions beyond not just discriminating to address disparities in housing access for protected groups. The question is two-part. Do you support reforming land use policies that restrict housing diversity, such as density caps, minimum lot size requirements, and single-family only zoning, to ensure that LA lives up to its legal and moral obligations to affirmatively further fair housing? And leading upon that, a majority of City Council voted in 2024 to exempt all single-family zone neighborhoods, which make up more than 70% of residential land in the city, from its new citywide housing incentive program. How did you or would you have voted on that and why? Starting with Rich, then Dylan, then Hugo.
Mhm.
Great. Thank you. We have the legal and moral obligation that everyone here in Los Angeles deserves a home, and we can build in neighborhoods where we can protect the cultural heritage. We do not evictions, all of those things. We cannot have that. We cannot have segregation. We are doing an incredible job as a city. The CHIP vote that the council member ran away from instead of tackling head on to see how we could make that happen appropriately with a pattern book at the time. These are all things that could have happened back then, and now here we are talking about them. It was a great opportunity for development in Los Angeles, and the council member voted no on that and ran away from that opportunity. I think that we most definitely need to be making sure that housing is provided in the organic, holistic way of community and local guidance and not local control.
Thank you. Dylan.
So the question is a little theoretical, number one. Again, Council District 13 doesn't have a lot of R1. It just really doesn't. I think we're already doing an incredible job of building. We're already very dense. We should be building more. We also want to make sure that, this district doesn't carry the heavy load for the entire city. But you will find that I'm very pro-building. But I want to just kind of pull us back on that and talk about what that really means. So I've said repeatedly that, Council District 13 has several community plans already. I've talked to several times throughout this opportunity with you about the idea that I want to do, which is promoting this 15-minute model, which is probably one of the most inclusive housing models or neighborhood revitalization models you can imagine, by taking those community plans and overlaying a community plan implementation strategy. And then we create standards for all of our new buildings that allow them to move more quickly and that take care of things like what we're specifically looking at with CHIP. And we don't, where I said this is sort of a theoretical, it is a kind of a theoretical for us in 13 because we just don't have that much R1 housing.
All right. Before we go to Hugo, I will just give you an opportunity if you want to speak to your vote or how you would have voted on the idea of adding single-family zones to the city's citywide housing incentive program.
I would have voted against it.
Okay. Now, Hugo, this is one that I think we can add 30 seconds for you.
Yes, thank you so much,
30
Jesse.
seconds.
Thank you so much, Jesse. Well, look, you can't have it both ways, right? You can't say that you don't want ED1 and Upper Larchmont and then say you want R1s. For me, those issues are very related. So I think Rich is talking out of both sides of his mouth right now. And look, let me set the record straight. The reason I voted against R1 is because the way it came out. We were having numerous meetings with the planning department, and at no point did they ever show us maps where R1 was being used. And so I had met with my community. The only options were the ones we had at the time. I made a commitment. I'm a stickler for keeping my word. And so by the time R1 came out, it was literally 1 or 2 weeks before the actual vote. That is not the way that I like to do policy. When things come up in my district, I get in there, I get in the weeds, we do town halls, we do as much as we can, and we make the tough decisions, which is why I supported those two 81 projects in Upper Larchmont. So but I want to be clear, we need to, and which is why I supported a more aggressive, option in SB 79. So those are two examples where we've had the opportunity to do outreach and talk to our community. We take the tough votes because we were able to talk to them and explain why we are doing this. And I was clear with my community that in the future, when R1 is on the table, we are going to look at it because the only way we're going to get around the racist redlining that it still continues to exist in the city is by building more units in those areas. And it's a commitment I will continue to make, but we have to do the outreach. We got to bring people along.
Okay. And Rich, I don't know, since you were also invoked now, if you have anything you want to
Right,
add.
absolutely. My point to ED1 was that we need clarity, and it goes back to local guidance and listening to the community and being a part of it for the conversations and hearing what everyone wants in the community. If that is what is happening with these Larchmont projects, which I'm pretty sure it is, then you have, as the council member, the right to listen to them. You need to listen to them to get that going. ED1 needs clarity. You can't just put affordable housing anywhere in the city. I think that there are rules and regulations for that.
Thank you. So moving on now, there is a popular narrative that you've probably heard that the city of LA, I guess it's a different definition of historic redlining, but is now being redlined by institutional capital, the city as a whole, in which a lot of investors have pulled back from investing in new housing and jobs in the city due to what is viewed as unsustainable levels of regulatory burden and political risk. Do you see this as a serious problem or par for the course bluster from capital? And if the former, what would you do to change it? Starting with Dylan, then Hugo, then Rich.
We do see this as a serious problem. I mean, we know San Diego is building more housing more quickly. It's absolutely, and I think it's a problem that look, the way I want to answer the question is we have set a system up in which we allow developers to go out and kind of rebuild neighborhoods parcel by parcel. We put a lot of pressure on developers, and they have to widen streets, and they have all the fees. We have made it, and a lot of times we send them into the wild, wild west without, especially in the past 3 years, having a concierge and a council office who can help them manage to move through all the different systems that need to be checked off in order to complete a project. And this is harder for the smaller developers. So yes, I do think there is capital flight. We know that. We have a myriad, like I said, of issues that are impacting that. The city doesn't feel safe any longer. Again, we're over-regulated. We get clogged up in various pathways like DWP. We have an alphabet soup of different types of zoning overlays like CHIP or ED1 or SB 79 or multifamily and so yes, I think we've made it more difficult than necessary to build, and we are seeing that capital flight.
Thank you. Hugo.
Yeah, this is a huge problem. Developers are having to borrow loans at 20% interest per year. That's insane. And the reason it's 20% is because of everything you just said right now, Jesse. The uncertainty, unpredictability, council members weighing in, killing projects, saying they support one thing, not support the other. That is the wrong way to be doing things in the city. Now, I feel makes me optimistic is groups like these who are advocating for more projects being ministerial has shifted. Now, 65% of the projects in the city are ministerial. That wasn't always the case. I would love to see as close as 100%, if not 100% of projects done ministerial. Bake the rules up front, give the developers certainty, predictability, so that when they go to you and present something, they know that it's going to get built and not going to get bogged down in all the red tape. So, which is why I'm supportive of doing. When we do Hollywood Community Plan, we will take away my discretion so that we can achieve those goals.
Thank you, Rich.
Yeah, this is a watershed moment for housing in Los Angeles. We have heard from so many that our city has been redlined because of financing for development. It is ULA, it's not SB 79. SB 79 would actually probably expedite financing for projects. I think that our council has done a horrible job trying to get permit reform, any type of reform to build in our city. We have got no actual cheerleaders or champions in Council District 13 for development for housing. We're building 400 units of housing throughout every district. We should be building 4,000. What it's going to take is a council member that can cheerlead and champion development projects that are great union jobs for the district to get things going so that financing can be excited again and we can start to see a boom come back for construction.
Thank you. On the topic of approvals, in the city of LA, when a neighbor or interest group appeals an approved housing project, they pay a fee of $229, or about 1% of the roughly $22,800 it actually costs the city to process that appeal. Taxpayers cover the other 99%. Um, Last year, the city administrative officer recommended ending this subsidy and requiring full cost recovery from all appellants. The city council rejected that proposal. Would you vote for the city to end this taxpayer subsidy for NIMBYism? And if not, why? Starting with Hugo, then Rich, then Dylan.
Yeah, thanks so much. This is a tricky one because you want people to be able to have an appeal process, in some regard, right? Now, I want to zoom out a little bit, which is why I think we need to make as many projects ministerial as possible. Have those rules baked in, so this is not never an issue. But that's 65% of the projects, but we're still dealing with 35% of them. Now, I do think right now it is just way too easy. I think an appeal, if it was full cost, would be something like $20,000 for that. So that's very prohibitive. Think about low income folks that are just not going to be able to do anything. But we got to look at a way where there is like not just one person can do an appeal and stop everything. Perhaps looking at a threshold or a certain number of people, something that is not as low barrier as just one single person with 500 bucks in their pocket to appeal. So I think looking at something like that would be the right way to go. But I want to emphasize again, making projects ministerial is the way we need to be striving for, right? So that these issues are not, taken up later. Bring the community in, make them part of the process, bake in the rules. That solves a lot of issues, including the one we're talking about right now.
Thank you, Rich.
Yes, I think the rate should be raised for this, and that a single person shouldn't have the power to derail an entire development. I do think that they should also be within a certain radius of the project. I think that certain homeowners associations have had a lot of power on projects that aren't even a direct effect to them. I would like to see the administerial built in to the council members' points type of project so that we can get construction back up and going. But none of that has happened. There's no progress on getting the built-in, the pattern books, the gentle density things. We're looking right now at a cliff with SB 79 where it's in limbo. And I think that worst case scenario, you've got a situation that people could be throwing left and right lawsuits at things. And if we don't put more regulations into that process, we might be facing a disaster when it comes time to mandating and filling our unit numbers.
Thank you, Dylan.
I think I'm going to have to, again, this is one of these very, it's got two sides to play because it depends on, of course, who's submitting the appeals. Like Rich said, are these, housing associations, or are these truly a neighbor who's just very frustrated because the building is going to put so much pressure on the quality of life on the street? I would also say that I haven't done an audit to the number of these that are submitted and what their impact is on construction. And I don't want to give you a theoretical answer without having read or understood more what the number count looks like. But where Ugo and I are in alignment, and again, I keep having to take it back to the way I would change what we're doing in Council District 13 when it comes to building new housing, really by baking it into the model where, again, we actually create guidelines for corridor by corridor, so we have planning sign off on the community plan implementation overlay, and then we by default end up removing the opportunities for appeal.
Thank you. We have time for one last question before closing statements. I'm going to kind of combine a few here. There was mention of LADWP and the difficulty that new buildings have with receiving energy, sometimes sitting fully constructed but empty for up to a year because they cannot get power. At the same time, there was also talk, I think, during today's session about other forms of streamlining in the post-entitlement permitting process, where we now are able to entitle projects faster, but to actually pull a building permit is incredibly difficult and complicated. Streamlining, cutting red tape, making LADWP hook up buildings faster. These are all things that I think everyone can agree on, but they're kind of easy to say and hard to do. And I'm curious, each of your perspectives on how you would actually make that a reality in the city of LA, starting with Rich, then Dylan, then Hugo.
Absolutely. I think that a shot clock for developments is an incredible thing, as well as an initial meeting with all hands on deck. I know that that would, every department for every project should have a manager that can work as an expediter. I know that an inspector should also be assigned to that. It could be a two-person job, so we make sure that palms aren't greased with funding. I know that's usually the reason we don't do that as a city, but I think that there are ways instantly we could move forward. Things that have been an option for the past few years but haven't gotten done. DWP is without a commander right now. I think that that's a great time to in fact change. I know that we just received as a city the $500 million check that we get from LADWP. They have the means and the resources to speed up their product. I don't know why they delay. Once a plan is approved, it should be approved and no changes asked by DWP, but we allow them to change plans. So those are some things I would make sure happen immediately.
Thank you. Dylan?
Look, Jesse, we all know that DWP is structurally sick. We also know they are very insulated. We are not the first people to ask, how can the council drive projects more quickly through DWP? We created in 2023 Project Powerhouse to allow the ED1s to get energized more quickly, to get plugged in more quickly. This conversation about taking that to all affordable. Of course, it may throw market off, right? It may sort of impact the flow for market rate housing or for other types of mixed use multifamily housing. So it's not necessarily a solution to say we simply can, kind of force the hands on this one typology of housing or this one category of housing. But I think if we get a good council who's willing to take on this bear of an issue, and we do some of the same things that I'm going to be doing in the council office when I'm elected, and that is hyper focus on transparency. And we ask the same for DWP. So we as a city can actually see where these projects are getting stuck with DWP and hold them more accountable.
Thank you. Hugo?
Yeah, th this is an issue that I think everyone can agree is going to take a very broad coalition in order to shake up the city. You have DWP that's it's a chartered department, very autonomous. There's a lot of politics there. You have developers who are, this is the biggest complaint now is the permitting process, which is now slower than the entitlement process, electrification, all those things. So it's like, similar to the way we reformed the rent stabilization ordinance formula after 40 years, it took a very broad coalition of people fighting. It's not going to be just one council office. It's got to be a lot of different groups. Look, there's been so much that housing groups have done across the state and across the city through state laws and city measures. Like that energy needs to flow into the permitting process. And I do believe that if we do that, and I'd be very supportive of doing that, that we can see some changes around it. But it's going to take all those groups of folks to figuring out and actually changing it in the city.
All right, thank you all. We are ready now to move into closing statements. We have we're going to go in reverse order from how we started the night. So that is Rich, and then Hugo, and then Dylan.
Absolutely. Thank you. I look forward to building an incredible Los Angeles with the pressures of SB 79 and a future in our city where our creatives can come back and we can all live and work here and every Angelino can thrive. We have been stagnant as a city. Construction has not happened. We are not going to meet our mandates for SB 79 as things are right now, and we need to change that. We have got ineffective leadership. We have no champion for projects. There is no real development happening. This is a city without vision. And this is Los Angeles. This is the greatest city in the world. I'm born and raised here. I want us to get back to the days of, the pioneer visions of dragging water from up north down into our city. The towers that we have around Hollywood and Vine and there was such excitement a decade ago, and we had a pandemic. And coming out of the pandemic, it was an okay feeling, like we're going to be okay. And the last few years, it has not felt okay. It feels like we keep getting hit with wave after wave. Costs are high. Services for the city have been cut left and right. We have leaders that don't know how to manage our budget, so we're spending a ton of money. We're also sending money back. There's $500 million we have to send back that we didn't spend for housing, for homelessness. And I'm watching ineffective leadership take its toll. And District 13 is a precious gem in Los Angeles. And I want the best for it. And I want the best for everyone living in it. And I look forward to getting building back going so that we can make sure that Angelinos can thrive here and live the lives that we all want.
Thank you, Hugo.
Well, Jesse and Victoria, thank you so much again for guiding us through this very important conversation. And for every other participants that are here today listening or will watch later, this is an extremely important topic. I mentioned at the beginning, my life experience, living in an area that was redlined, not having access to economic opportunities, seeing how folks that are trying to just get by in the city, just being walls being thrown up every single time. And I think the experience that I had in my previous job has built me for this position. Coalition builder, someone that listens, someone that brings folks in together. And it's not just theoretical. We can point to wins that we have been a part of when we actually put all those things together. Updating the rent stabilized ordinance formula for the first time in 40 years was not an easy lift. That took groups pushing, strategizing, co-governing together to change that, and we did it. Passing, when the raids happened in Los Angeles, the relationships with our immigrants' rights communities, working through the problems, strategizing, co-governance, we're pushing along. The issue of housing is no different. And I'm very proud of my team and I and what we've done. We're having conversations with the community. We're talking to folks that are building the buildings in the city. We're looking at how the city can improve. And it's never about one individual, but all of us having a common goal. And so as we work through these things, and I was very happy to be a partner with the housing groups when SB 79 debate came up. I wanted for more aggressive options in housing. I was in the minority, but we pushed it. ED1 projects in Upper Larchmont, difficult conversation, but they're happening. That's what's needed right now. And for folks if you're in my district watching, I hope you vote for me. And please join our campaign and follow us at Ugo for City 13 and on your socials.
Thank you. Dylan.
So I just want to go back to a little visioning for the district. And as I said earlier, we didn't talk about member deferment. We will build a lot of housing in Council District 13, and we know that we will do it in a way that can be beta run in our district and then multiplied throughout the city. I think, again, we continue to think about housing as somehow isolated from all of the other stressors on our city. We don't have enough green space. We are losing too much public space to encampments. People don't feel safe any longer walking down their sidewalks. Parents don't feel safe taking their kids to parks. We have job loss. We have small businesses that can't keep their doors open because they're overregulated and they're paying too much out to the city. And then we have national stressors. So I really want to always think about housing when I look at the opportunity to redesign Council District 13 in a way that equitably makes for great living for everybody. So that's families, that's people with kids. We don't have a lot of young families in the district any longer because they can't find the type of housing that makes sense for them. Again, this is the same thing I discovered. I've got 2 kids crammed up into 1 bedroom also. So I've digressed there a little. I want to bring us back to the point. I want to think about housing and our need to build a lot more housing in a way that's complementary to what our neighborhoods need in this district. Because what we have right now in CD 13 is a bunch of low-rise, 1-story retail on corridors, not all of them as significantly large as like a Vermont, these kind of minor arteries as well, 1-story residential everywhere, which makes for very hot walking, by the way, and it's a massive lost opportunity for housing, and it burdens those small businesses because they don't get enough footfall. I want to think really about how we design Council District 13 so it becomes housing becomes part of the piece. So people live here, they shop here, they work here, they send their kids to school here, or if not, at least they go to a park after school here. And that's how we create a thriving ecosystem.
Thank you, each of you,
Thank you.
all our candidates for joining us tonight and for your commitment to public service. And thank you to everyone who took the time to learn the candidates' positions on this all-important issue. If you want lower rents and more homes in Los Angeles, please get involved, become a member of the Housing Action Coalition in YIMBY Los Angeles. Thank you all for tuning in, and have a good night.
Thank you, Jesse, for hosting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, team.